Morning, everybody. Zach here with Forward Strength. We have another Q&A for you. This is a beginner's edition. I love doing beginners sort of questions because they got them, right? Folks who are new tend to have a lot of questions, but they're also usually surprisingly insightful questions. I think these three questions that we found have a lot of insights that even more experienced folks can glean a lot of like cool little details from. So even if you have been going to the gym for a long time, or that's already a habit, no problem. There's always sort of hiccups and setbacks, and questions like this can be a really great way to sort of get back into training, or it's just a great way to sort of take a deeper look at what you're doing. So this is beginner's questions. Again, I've picked three that have been sent in to me. If you have more questions, please leave them in the comments or email athlete.forward@gmail.com. We can get those questions answered for you. So here's another Q&A, beginner's edition. The first one is, I feel like I'm too far gone. I've never done any exercise, not even sports in school. I can't even imagine what would happen if I did start. How can I get over this mental hump? So the condensed question here is, how do I start training if I've never done anything before and can't even visualize what that would look like? So this is a super common question. This is one that I think a lot of folks can relate to for a number of reasons, not just with fitness and training, but really with any habit or behavior change. If you don't know what the end result is going to look like, it's really hard to say, okay, here are the steps that I need to get there. Like if you don't know, if you're going on a road trip and you don't know where you're going to drive, where you're trying to drive to, it's really hard to look at a map and say, here's how I'm going to get there. So for this one, to answer this one directly, I would say it's not always going to just be about what's the end goal. Having little goals along the way is really helpful, but saying, I want this and then done. Like I'm going to go to the gym until I've lost 150 pounds and I have the body of my dreams and then I'm done. Well, that's not really realistic, because that mindset isn't going to carry you through to that end goal, right? Thinking I want to do this big aggressive thing and then I'm done. A lot of folks I think are going to be discouraged along the way because it's a big lofty goal and it's sort of unrealistic to just expect that that's how you're going to be for the rest of your life after you're done. I think a different way to think about this, not necessarily like I need a goal, a specific end goal. Another way to think about this for this person who feels like they've never done any kind of training before or really any kind of exercise before is you need this, right? If the human body is designed to be able to move in all different planes of motion, to be able to do all sorts of different activities at the drop of a hat. And so if you've never ever done any kind of fitness or exercise or training or even just movement, then you're setting yourself up for failure later on. So I think that's a better way to think about it, is movement. Don't think about it as going to the gym with the intent of looking like someone you see on the internet. Think about it as I need to protect my ability to do things in everyday life and in fact grow that ability. So let's start with a very small example of putting a dish up on a shelf, right? You have to be able to reach up overhead and put something on a shelf. We want to protect and build that ability. So if the goal is to be able to reach up and put something on a shelf, and we want to lift weights in order to protect that, what do we have to do? We have to press things overhead. Okay, so pressing overhead is one skill that we want. What about one that's maybe even a little more universal, is like sitting down, right? Probably, I'd be willing to bet if you're this person, you probably do a lot of sitting in normal life, just because if you were in a position to do more fitness and movement throughout life where you're not saying to yourself, I've never done anything, then we probably wouldn't be having this conversation, right? So sitting is something that we all do a lot. So how do we make sitting easier, right? What happens when you sit? You bend your knees and you bend your hips and you descend until you're in the chair or couch or whatever it is you're sitting on. And then to get up, you unbend or extend your knee and extend your hip until you're standing again. Another way to think about that is a squat, right? A squat is exactly what we just described. You're bending your knees and hips and then extending your knees and hips. So we train squats, right? If you can't visualize sort of what to do in the gym or even going to the gym in the first place, don't. Try visualizing the things in everyday life that you need to get better at and protect, and then realize that there are exercises we can do to help protect those things, right? So sitting in a chair, reaching up overhead. If you fall, being able to catch yourself, being able to absorb force without breaking your wrist or elbow or shoulder. There's all sorts of different things that strength is going to help you with in normal life. And we can just think about those normal life things and then say, okay, how do I apply that in the gym? So you're going to the gym not with the goal of looking a certain way, but with the goal of protecting movement to be healthier for longer. So to answer this one, so visualize the movements you need in everyday life and replicate those in the gym. Okay, so a quick addendum to this is sometimes on like, to bring it sort of back to the internet, you see funny videos of folks who are like using the cable machine with a towel and doing like weird neck crunches like it's Night at the Roxbury. Don't be that person, right? There's a limit to how much sort of the exercise you're doing is going to mimic normal life. I think a better way to think about it is there are specific exercises that already exist. You don't have to invent anything new. So a Google search of like shoulder health exercises is a good place to start, right? You don't have to invent something new where you're like, bringing your own props from home to the gym in order to balance something on your nose while standing on a basketball and doing single leg squats. Like, you don't have to invent anything new. There's a whole wide world of exercises that exist already. Watch some videos, educate yourself a little bit. Like 5 minutes before you go to the gym, you pull up a YouTube video, or even while you're doing the exercise, pull up a YouTube video. I think that's a great place to start. Learning is also part of this process. So watching and then doing and then sort of feeling what didn't go well and then doing again is a great way to learn and build these things. So second piece is no need to reinvent the wheel. Fun. YouTube and Google are great resources. Okay, cool. Next one. I don't know what to shoot for. How do I pick a goal? So we kind of covered this one a little bit already. But let's take a different example because the first one's a little bit specific. Maybe I don't know much about this person who asked this question, but we'll just make something up. Say, your specific goals sort of should be in the realm of weight loss and strength gain. I think that's probably a pretty safe, like very general realm for most people, is we all need, a little bit more sort of muscle mass generally, not a ton, but again, building a little bit more so you have a buffer for later on in life when it starts to degrade on its own. Building that buffer is a great way to protect your health for a long term and also make everyday life a little bit easier. So that's gaining a little bit of strength, gaining a little bit of muscle, and then losing a little bit of weight. For most folks, the vast majority of average folks, that's helpful. A, to make moving your body through space a little bit easier, and B, because it's all part of this like modern lifestyle we live. We all carry a little bit of extra weight, probably a lot of bit of extra weight, because our whole lifestyle is kind of not the way that we evolved to be, if that makes sense, right? So like sitting at your desk for 8 hours a day and eating a bunch of processed carbs all throughout the day and not eating enough protein is like, evolutionarily, that doesn't really jive with how we came up, right? So if you imagine what a caveman did during his day, it looks absolutely nothing like what we do. I said that to someone the other day, and they were like, yeah, but cavemen died at 35. But I am fairly certain that most sort of early evolutionary man didn't die from metabolic diseases like diabetes. I'm pretty sure that that's a relatively new development in sort of human evolution, or human history at least. So the things that they died of were a lot more related to the environment they were in and not their daily not necessarily their metabolic function. And right now, because we don't have any real threats to our daily existence, like a saber-toothed tiger coming out of the brush or whatever to eat you, as often happened to that kind of person. And we have modern medicine to handle things like cancer, on. Really, the biggest threats are lifestyle threats, like, again, diabetes and general obesity and heart disease and that sort of thing. So I don't know what to shoot for. How do I pick a goal? Well, let's start with what outcomes don't you want? An outcome that we don't want, again, this is kind of dramatic, but premature death due to metabolic issues, right? So let's do things that are going to help prevent that. Just having preventative goals isn't always, or like avoidance goals isn't always the best way to go, because then it's hard to make decisions other than out of like fear and anxiety. So picking goals that aren't just avoiding disease, well, what's the single best way to avoid metabolic disease is a routine of movement, right? So building more activity into your everyday life. And for a lot of us, it's somewhat simple to do that. That's going to the gym. What I'm not telling you to do is like quit your office job and start a landscaping company, and now you're moving every day. You don't have a choice. I'm not telling you to do that, because that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense for most normal people. But it's also, there's an easier way to do it, and why don't we just do the easier way, which is go to a building that's specifically designed for housing weights that are ergonomically perfect for lift. Like we have a gym. That's what it's for. So a good way to maybe set a goal that helps you avoid, again, the metabolic problems that we're talking about, like, again, diabetes, heart disease, that sort of thing. Make going to the gym a habit. That's the goal, is make working out regularly 4 to 5 times a week a habit and a routine that's as sort of integral to your routine as you're brushing your teeth. That's the easiest example I can think of. Or even going to work, right? Like, what do? Is you wake up, you do your morning routine, you go to work. Right now, you probably just go home, or like pick up dinner and go home. But what I'm saying is, let's insert the gym in there somewhere. Maybe it's, if if there's a gym near you with nice showers, maybe it's wake up, go to the gym, go to work, go home. Or maybe it's wake up, go to work, go to the gym, go home. But either way, you're inserting that in there somewhere. So how do I pick a goal? The best goal for most beginners is just making movement a habit. Cool. Habits and patterns matter. Something to sort of just to insert here is this recommendation: 4 to 5 times a week, walking on the treadmill for 20 minutes. A better thing would be to be outside. But if we're talking about sustainable habits and patterns, if you live in a place like I live in Michigan, where it's rainy and snowy and like everything is a sheet of ice right now, that can be problematic. So having something that's consistent, no matter the time of year, like going to the gym to walk on the treadmill, is a great way to help preserve that pattern. Another thing to insert here is just walking on the treadmill for 20 minutes, 4 to 5 times a week. If your goals change to something more specific, I want to look a certain way, or build muscle mass, or be better at XYZ. If your goal is to be better at XYZ, if one of those things isn't walking on the treadmill for 20 minutes, then only walking on the treadmill for 20 minutes is not enough to get you there. What I'm saying, 4 to 5 times a week, walking on the treadmill for 20 minutes, what I'm saying is that's just a way to start building the habit of going to the gym, so later on we can start adding things. You don't necessarily just want to jump in whole hog and hope that you figure it out and become a stud right away. If that's your goal, I don't know. But don't allow yourself to fall into the trap of thinking that just walking on the treadmill is enough to achieve more specific goals. Again, this is about patterns and habits and just going to the gym. So and that's okay, right? Because this is about progress and just achieving, again, a small goal, and then having another small goal, on and on and on and on and on. Maybe it's get to the gym 4 to 5 times a week consistently for 3 weeks. Great. Now let's start using some basic dumbbells 3 to 4 weeks. And now let's start using a barbell 3 to 4 weeks. On and on and on and on and on. We're adding small goals. It's about progress. So next question. I already feel like I don't have enough energy for my day-to-day. How can I spend even more energy on working out? This is a really good question, because it seems sort of paradoxical, right? It's like, if I already don't have enough energy, how do I go spend even more energy? Like something is missing, right? So to that I say, why don't you have enough energy right now? It could be working out, but it could also be nutrition, right? Because that plays a big part and ties into this too. So ask yourself, when you feel like you're having low energy, is it all the time, or is it specific times of day when you happen to notice it and be thinking about it, for most of us, that's like the afternoon crash, right? That's sort of the quintessential like roller coaster effect of crashing around 2 or 3 p.m. and then just being tired for the rest of the day. That crash, or really any crash happens, but this is a good specific example, that afternoon crash happens because your nutrition earlier in the day wasn't optimal for you. What I'm not saying is that you can just change your eating and not do any kind of fitness and then you'll just be totally fine and healthy. And I mean, some people maybe, but probably not for most of us. So in order to avoid that crash, there are a couple of hard truths that we need to think about. One, if you're having breakfast, which unfortunately a lot of people these days aren't, if you're having breakfast, it probably isn't composed of things that are going to help you later on. And two, you're probably drinking too much coffee, and so you're running out of sort of that big, energy hit you get from coffee. So, two ways to think about this. One, let's change your breakfast and snacks. Generally, you want more fats. Not a ton. I'm not saying eat peanut butter straight out the jar and just go, because there's a lot of calories. But things like avocado, things like nuts or coconut, or these things that like a Google search for healthy fats will be sort of yield a lot of great results. Those things are going to give you energy for longer. Maybe not immediately. It could take a week, 2, 3 to really see the benefits of that. But if the crash is what you're trying to avoid, this is the solution, and it's worth it to change your habits in order to avoid that crash. So veggies and fats in the morning. The veggies are going to help fill you up because it's really it's really easy to eat a bunch of fats and then feel gross. But if you eat a bunch of veggies and then have the fats with it, you feel full. The fiber from the veggies helps you digest the fat. There's a lot of other benefits we could get into. But having those fats for breakfast and then nuts or something as a snack are going to help you avoid that afternoon crash because you have the ability to sort of create energy for longer in your body. The second way to think about it is the coffee front. I love coffee. Most of us do. But what coffee does is it artificially or sort of from an outside perspective tells your body, hey, you need to be ready to go hunt a mammoth right now, right? It's getting your sympathetic nervous system. It's getting your body's fight or flight response turned up a little bit, maybe a lot of it, depending on how much coffee you drink. But it's artificial, right? That's not coming from your internal sense of your environment and what's happening, right? You're not seeing a predator and saying, I got to get ready to fight this thing or run away. You're just drinking something and now that feeling is happening. So if we have too much of that, your body's going to react as if a real predator was there, but you have nothing to do with that energy and you're sitting at work, right? You are not using that energy. So A, you're going to burn through any readily available energy that you have. And again, that's the crash because you run out. And B, you're making it harder for your body to learn to create its own energy sort of on its own without the need for coffee, which is part of that crash and then part of like the withdrawal symptoms that we feel, when you stop coffee. If you've ever gone cold turkey on coffee or been like traveling or whatever, you found yourself without the ability to have coffee, it sucks. I 100% understand and agree. It sucks. Because your body is so used to getting something that makes it feel good because it wants to feel good in order to like fight a predator. You're taking that away. And when you take that away, the body says, why are you doing this to me? I hate you now. So the two fronts that we can think about this, if you already don't have enough energy, it's because you're eating the wrong things. And that's like a big nebulous statement. We can get more specific in another video if you like. You're eating the wrong things. I recommend more fats in the morning and definitely less carbs. And we'll talk about carbs here in a second. And then coffee, try to pull back on the coffee a little bit. Believe it or not, you actually feel better later on. Carbs is the carbohydrates give you a very similar effect as the coffee, where you're telling your body like, hey, it's time to go right now. And then you're doing nothing with it. And you burn through that energy very, very quickly. Especially the carbs and the coffee together. The coffee is going to help you burn through the carbs even faster. And so by the time that 2, 3 o'clock rolls around, you've burned through everything that you've got. Even if you ate lunch, which again is probably a bunch of carbs, your body is it's burning through those so quickly. Again, you're probably anxious and stressed out. We all live like this all the time with tight shoulders, even if you don't realize it. By the time that 2 or 3 o'clock rolls around, you just got nothing left. So more fats in the morning and like snacks throughout the day, but very small quantities, like a few, like to be sort of very tangible here, like 3 or 4 cashews. I'm not talking about eating handfuls of trail mix and saying like, oh yeah, Zach told me to, this is healthy. It's not. You want very small quantities but spread out throughout the day, and a little bit less coffee, pull back those carbs. That's going to help you have a little bit more energy. And then you'll be more sensitive to those carbs so that by the time the afternoon does roll around, say you're working out in the afternoon or you plan to, having a little bit of carbs right before you're working out will actually make your workouts feel better, and you'll have more energy in those workouts. And the more you do the workouts, the better you'll be able to have energy throughout the day, which means you can do more workouts or more intense workouts, which means you'll have more energy throughout the day, on and on and on. That's how the cycle starts. So here it is. It's about building a cycle of improvement that starts with better nutrition, fats in the morning, no carbs, less, easier in the other direction, less coffee, more carbs, and making working out a priority. Oh, come on. That wasn't even close. A priority. You'll have more energy so you can work out more, which gives you more energy. On and on. There you go. So it's about building that cycle of improvement. The idea is just do something now that's going to help you do another thing later, which will help you do another thing later, and they all sort of build on each other. So start, say, today. Don't even wait until tomorrow. Start like right now. Like when you're watching this video, whatever the next thing in your day is going to be, if the plan is like to go to the gym, eat a little bit of carbs and go to the gym. Even if you've already had a bunch of carbs earlier in the day, or if you're feeling tired, like let's just start somewhere, right? The chicken or the egg, it had to start somewhere. You know, the metaphor, we don't know which, but it had to start somewhere. So just start somewhere. That's fine. So eat a little bit of carbs and go to the gym. And like a little bit, like a bag of chips is not ideal for a host of reasons, but if that's what you have access to and fits your pattern right now, start with that today. And then tomorrow or next week or whatever, then we can talk about better options for carbs. Honey is a good one. You hear about people with like a peanut butter sandwich, like half of a peanut butter sandwich would probably be better. Stuff like that. I would not jump straight to supplements. I would start with and continue with real foods as much as you possibly can because it's long-term better. That's a different video we can talk about if you like. But for now, right, whenever you're watching this video, carbs, workout, and then the next day, fats in the morning, less coffee, carbs, workout. Fats in the morning, less coffee, carbs, workout, right? Now we start the cycle. That's what I would recommend for this person. If you already don't have enough energy day to day, that means that you need this even more. Start making simple changes right now. What we don't want to do is delay any further, and what we don't want to do is try to jump in too aggressively, too quickly. So these have been 3 Q&A questions from beginners especially. These are awesome questions. So again, as you have them, guys, please send them in athlete.forward@gmail.com or in the comment section of this video. Love to answer these because A, they're helpful for you, and that is what I want. And also they're great insights for folks who maybe have been doing this for a while but still need a little bit of help or a refresher or can pull nuggets of truth out of this. So I've been Zach, Forward Strength. Thanks a lot.